Well, hello, LifeSite friends. Jim Hale with you here on the Monday before the Wednesday when the Supreme Court will hear the arguments in the Mississippi abortion case, which we just call Dobbs. And to help us understand that, we want to bring in Adèle Keim of the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty. The Becket Law is certainly one of the greatest constitutional law firms in this country. Adèle Keim, her name is actually on the amicus briefs that Becket filed with the Supreme Court. So, Adèle, thank you so much for helping us understand and anticipate what's going to be happening on Wednesday.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Adèle, what was the thrust of Beckett's argument in this amicus brief?
Well, Jim, as you know, and as your readers know, Mississippi passed a law limiting abortions after 15 weeks of gestation. Previously, Mississippi had limited abortions after 16 weeks, and that 1 week move has provoked quite the tempest. Mississippi lost an abortion clinic in Mississippi sued the state and won, and had the law put on ice by the district court. The federal court of appeals, the Fifth Circuit, said, yes, that's right, you've got to freeze it under Roe versus Wade. So Mississippi has gone all the way to the Supreme Court to fight for this one proposition, that Roe versus Wade was incorrectly decided nearly 50 years ago, and it should be overturned.
Adèle, why is Roe versus Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood, I believe that was 1992, why are these so bad constitutionally?
Well, Jim, I work for the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, and we're a religious liberty firm. We focus on one principle, that's religious liberty for all. We like to say we've represented everybody from A to Z, Anglican to Zoroastrian, and lots of folks in between. Our clients do not agree about God. They do not agree about most issues in some cases, and including the issue of abortion. But what they do agree upon is that the state should not be in the business of telling people what to believe. And when a government tries to get between a person's conscience and their God, that's a government that knows no limits. And we filed our amicus brief in Dobbs to tell the court that we have seen in the past decade in particular a host of religious liberty conflicts that are really, really shadow proxy battles for the fight over abortion. And when the Supreme Court took abortion out of the hands of the state legislatures and out of the hands of the people nearly 50 years ago, it did not settle the issue. In fact, the issue has grown more contentious and has spilled over into many other areas of American life. So we wrote to ask the court to put this issue back where it belongs and to take it out of the hands of 9 unelected justices.
Adèle, how are you feeling about this? Because they're going to sit down on Wednesday morning, and tell us exactly what is going to happen on Wednesday.
Well, there'll be lawyers so first of all, it will be an empty courtroom because of COVID. The Supreme Court held telephonic oral arguments for nearly a year. And then this fall went back to in-person arguments, but the only people allowed to be at those arguments are 2 advocates for each side. So the justices will be sitting in the grand chamber of the Supreme Court of the United States that your viewers have probably seen photos of or even visited themselves. But they will be alone. That gallery, which in a normal year would be packed to standing, will be empty, but for the advocates and the justices and those necessary to the business of the court. They will be, the state of Mississippi will have the Attorney General for the state of Mississippi and her deputy will be arguing and defending Mississippi's law, which, like I said, changes the abortion regulations in the state to say no abortions after 15 weeks gestation. And on the other side, there'll be advocates for the Mississippi Abortion Clinic that's challenged the law and said that 1 week movement is unconstitutional under Roe and Casey and cannot stand.
Okay, and how does this give the justices an opportunity to reconsider Roe v. Wade?
Well, the abortion clinic has said if if Roe v. Wade is valid, if it's good law, then Mississippi cannot impose any restrictions on abortion prior to viability, prior to the viability of the fetus or the unborn child. And so they have said, they are the ones who've put Roe versus Wade at issue. And Mississippi has come back and said, yes, that's exactly right. Roe versus Wade took this issue, it constitutionalized it nearly half a century before, and it does not belong in the Constitution. It belongs in the state houses, where Americans can talk to each other frankly and settle this issue the way that they settle other issues, like assisted suicide. There are states that have legalized assisted suicide. There are other states that have rejected over and over again, have rejected attempts to legalize assisted suicide. And assisted suicide laws have to be negotiated for the most part through the state houses. And so Mississippi's position essentially boils down to this needs to go back to be something that Americans can have a conversation about, a debate about. And of course, Becket doesn't take a position on what kinds of policies Americans ought to choose. We wrote to emphasize that we are seeing religious rights, conscience rights especially, being attacked, not as such, but as a proxy war for the incredible energy and passion that people in this country feel about the issue of abortion. So behind me, I have one of the Little Sisters of the Poor caring for an elderly patient. The Little Sisters of the Poor had to go to the Supreme Court 3 separate times, Jim, 3 separate times, to avoid being conscripted as foot soldiers in the government's effort to distribute contraceptives to American women. That wasn't really, the government never established that there was an incredible crisis in need of solving such that they had to conscript the Little Sisters of the Poor. Right. It was a proxy battle. It was a proxy battle. And when you read the history of the politics of it under the Obama White House, that's exactly how it was discussed. It was an effort to capture pro-choice women voters during a contentious election year. And it just should not be that Americans of faith have their rights restricted in these proxy battles. We should have these conversations, and people should be able to have these conversations. Look, Jim, it's like a hockey team, a hockey match where no one's been able to score for a long time, and the players just start hitting each other.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is really process. Yeah, that's a great point, because how many women who wanted contraception were prevented from getting contraception because of the Little Sisters of the Poor, right?
The government has never pointed to a single woman, and that is in, almost a decade of litigation. So yes, so these proxy battles are spilling over into other areas of the law, and they're causing harm elsewhere. And so we wrote to encourage the court to return this issue to where it belongs, because abortion haunts the law, and it ought not be so.
Okay, now, Adele, I know it that constitutional lawyers hate it when people like me ask this question. So now I have to ask you, of course. We know we need 5 justices. Okay, we know that Clarence Thomas, pretty solid vote right there. Justice Alito, perhaps Gorsuch. Then we get into tricky terrain with Amy Coney Barrett, with Justice Roberts, and then with Justice Kavanaugh. So how are you handicapping this yourself? I mean, are we going to get those 2 votes between Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Roberts?
Jim, I'm going to say I could never predict what the court is going to do. But Mississippi's bold move in passing this law and in pursuing this case, defending its law all the way through 2 losses and all the way to the Supreme Court, means that this issue is going to be aired. It's going to be aired at the highest levels, and the justices are going to have the opportunity to squarely consider whether Roe was rightly decided 50 years ago. And that's a fair hearing in a fair court is the most that any advocate could ever ask for.
All right. Well, I pick up some optimism in your voice right there. Yep. Are you optimistic?
I am hopeful that the court is going to give a fair hearing. and it is a fair tribunal. And I'm hopeful that the voices of the many, many Americans, there were 140 amicus briefs filed on both sides of this issue, and just the national focus and attention on this case and this hearing really underscores the point that Americans are passionate about this issue. They want to talk to each other about this issue. They want to make decisions and reason together about these issues. And that the Supreme Court is not the best institution in our system to be making these difficult decisions about the protection of unborn life. It belongs elsewhere.
Well, there you go. And Mississippi passed a law. It was passed by the legislature in the state of Mississippi. So there you go, right? Adèle, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the work that you do at Becket and the amicus brief that you guys filed. We're prayerful and we're hopeful we're going to get the results that all the pro-life advocates that we've been hoping for decades now. So thank you so much for helping to understand this better. Can't thank you enough for being with us today, Adèle Keim.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Okay. God bless. Bye-bye.